birthday, and next week is Pesach. Today's Yud Ches, so Thursday is Chof. So I'm talking about the Rebbetzin this week, even though her birthday is next week, because next week I have to talk about Pesach. So I spoke about the Rebbetzin yesterday a little bit in the other room. And every time I talk about the Rebbetzin, I feel so strange, because I have no idea who she is. I have no idea what the Rebbetzin is. And yet we talk about her. Why? Because the Rebbe wants us to. The Rebbe made her into a Rebbetzin after she passed away. But I want to share I want to talk about birthdays. That's what I want to talk about. Because the Rebbe connected the Rebbetzin to the mitzvah of birthdays. You know, one of the great cliche lines in America is, do you remember where you were when Kennedy was shot? Now, this is not you, this is not me, this is my father, you know. My father when Kennedy was shot, my father was probably 25 years old, 25 already. He was killed in November 63. And everybody from that generation remembers exactly where they were when they heard the news that Kennedy was shot. Our generation, it is, do you remember where you were when COVID started? Everybody has a
I thought it was the Twin Towers.
You remember that?
No, I'm sorry. I thought
Okay.
that.
9/11.
Yeah.
That was an earlier generation. Yeah, now
The
it's
generation one.
now it's you remember when COVID started? What's your experience of COVID? I mean, many people, including people a lot older than you, literally they find their life by koydem COVID and lachat. They koydem ad tzimtzum lachat ad tzimtzum. For you who are young, COVID is a very important event. When you'll be 90 years old, COVID will be an important event in your life, because it happened to you at a point when you were very impressionable, and it shook your world. I'm sure it shook your world a lot more than it shook mine, because when COVID happened, I was past 50. I mean, I had a whole life behind me. This is your life. But the same applies to 770. Do you remember where you were when? Do you remember where you were when you heard that the Rebbetzin passed away? Do you remember what you were when you heard about the stroke? Do you remember where you were when you heard about Gibel Tammuz? I remember very distinctly each one of those events, exactly where I was and what happened. And I replay those movies in my head, you know. One of the interesting phenomena of 770 in those years was that when the Rebbetzin passed away, the Rebbe stayed home. For the first year, almost the whole year. He came to 770 only Shabbos and Yom Tov. The Rebbe literally lived at home during the year of Avelis, and even after, he would go home from time to time, sometimes for a day or two, sometimes for weeks. One of the greatest traumas of my life was I got married on a Monday night, Vav Tazayin Kislev. That night we started saying V'sein Talamota. My wedding started late. My wedding, I think on Kabbalah Spana was called for 7 o'clock. Today that's unheard of, but then it was normal. The Kabbalah Spana started at 7 o'clock, the Chuppah was at 8. Maida was 5:15. I was in my apartment, I was with my brother, Kingston and Carroll, great spot, mamish, 1 minute for 770. The alarm rang. The alarm that announced a surprise zichur. So I ran to 770. I was an idiot, I should have put on my kapotam hat, my gartel, and got over to the Rebbe, taking $1, say, I'm getting married in a couple of hours, but I had done the day before for $1, and I was very chassidish. I didn't want to waste the Rebbe's time. Great regret. I didn't go for $1. I was there a couple of hours for my chuppah. And I could have put my kapota, my gartel, my hat, and say, Chibal Chassan up and get $1 from the Rebbe and a bracha, but I didn't do it. But I was by the zichur. So the Rebbe gave sficha about V'sein Talamota, and he gave $. So then I went to my Kabbalah Spanim, and I went to himself for the chuppah. And the first thing any bacher would look at when he comes to 770 is that the Rebbe's light is on in his office. And the lights were off. And I was devastated. Binyamin Klein is my uncle. He was by my wedding. And I turned to Binyamin and said, where's the Rebbe? The Rebbe went home. It was a punch in the stomach like you have not. He spoke a sikha on the day I got married. That's not enough, yeah? 1 week later, one of my friends got married, the Yadalit kiss, which was anniversary. He didn't speak a sikha, he just gave $. But the night I got married, he spoke a sikha and gave $. I went home. I was so hurt. So my uncle, I'm walking to the yichud room to get ready for my chuppah, and I find out that the Rebbe decided, Paltiel, I'm getting out of here. You think that I was thinking about me? I mean, the Rebbe thinks about everybody, but that's how I experienced it. I'm trying to give you an insight into how much our lives were connected to the Rebbe. This is very simple story, but these are very meaningful. So my uncle tried to explain to me that the Rebbe is here, it is by your chuppah. I wasn't even listening. I mean, I knew what he was saying, but the Rebbe's going home was a message to me that wasn't so geschmack. The fact was that the Rebbe spoke a sichet in Rebbe Chassaneh and gave dollars, which l'chayr is very geschmack. So, but you know how it is. So during the time that the Rebbe was home, a lot of the siches you remember by where you were standing. When the Rebbe was in 770, so the Rebbe was in the same place. It was the front of the shul or in the middle of the shul, and you had your place. So every time the Rebbe spoke, you stood in the same spot because that's how you stood in 770. But if the Rebbe's on President Street, and you're not expecting a sicha, and all of a sudden the Rebbe's voice comes on, you stop in your tracks, and that's where you hear that sicha. So there are a bunch of sichas that I can associate with the place. You understand what I'm saying? There are a number of sichas that I remember the sicha based on where I was standing when the Rebbe's voice came on, because it was a surprise. The sicha that the Rebbe spoke on the Rebbe's birthday was a total surprise. Why? It was after Shacharis. The Rebbe never spoke after Shacharis, never. He usually spoke after Ma'ariv, occasionally after Mincha. When did the Rebbe speak after Shacharis? Never. Erev Pesach that year, they made us see him after Shacharis. So I'm a 770 Bacher, and I was actually one of those weird Bacherim who actually came to yeshiva. I went to yeshiva. So it was about 7 minutes after 11 in the morning, and I got there to have a cup of coffee. I had a seat. The 770, one of the biggest problems, finding a place to sit. And there was a lot of competition. A lot of people shared the same seats because they all came at the same time and sat on top of one another. Beruchnias, but Begashmias, only one of the guys actually showed up. I was one of the guys who showed up. There was a guy who never sat, never. But don't you dare take a seat. He stood a whole day in front of 770. But every 15 minutes he'd walk in and make sure no one's sitting in the seat. I took that guy's seat, don't ask. I said, he's not sitting here. No. Anyway, but this was a whole day. He would stand there, he would never sat down, but he would watch, don't sit in my seat. So I forgot even where I was sitting, but I remember I was holding a cup of coffee and I was walking by the pushka in the back. You guys go to 770 when they make the events for the women?
Yeah.
So when you walk in the back door, the very, very back door, or as they say in Brooklyn, the backest door, you know, there is the ramp that goes down with the double doors that open, correct? There's another door that opens under the building of 7th. You have to go down a few more steps. You walk through a long hallway, you open that door. Right to the left is a pushka. I was standing right there, and the Rebbe's voice comes on. It was such a surprise, and the Rebbe spoke about the Rebbe's whose shloishim had finished 1 week earlier. That was passed by Chof Bei Shvat. Now it's Chof Hei Oder. She literally 33 days before. Chof Aleph Oder. The Rebbe spoke a sicha after Mincha. And I remember I was standing in the hallway upstairs. I remember where I was standing when the Rebbe spoke the sicha, and I associate that place with that sicha. And the Rebbe spoke about birthdays. He says today is the Yom Haledet of the Rebbetzin. And so the Rebbe made an official mitzvah Yom Haledet. The people should celebrate their birthdays. That's the teichen of the sicha. Now that sicha, if I'm not mistaken, is mugit, edited. It's not that long. And the truth of the matter is that the real birthday sicha was not then. The Rebbe spoke about birthdays again, Achei Shel Pesach, the last day of Pesach, same year, 1988, Toshin Mem Ches. And that's when the Rebbe gave the 10 minhagos. The Rebbe made 10 customs. On a birthday, you're supposed to do 10 things, including one of the biggest surprises is that in Yom Haledet you're supposed to make a shechayonu. Now, Shech B'chlal, we're very machmed about brachas, right? I think I told this to you last week. Safek brachas lahokal actually means safek brachas lahachmir. If you're not sure you made a bracha, you can't make a bracha because we're very serious about saying Hashem's name in vain. The only bracha that we're sort of a little bit loose about is shechayanu. Shechayanu. So the Chabad tradition always was that you made a shechayanu on a new fruit. We don't make shechayanu on new clothes. We really don't. And part of the reason is because today we're all getting new clothes all the time. It's not such a big simcha. But there is an approach that Shechayanu. Does anybody know what Shechayanu is called in the Lashon of the Gemara? In the Mishnah and the Gemara, what is the bracha of Shechayanu called? Huh? It's called Zman. In the Mishnah, it's called Zman, right? Erev Pesach this year is Shabbos, right? Hello? Yeah. So what's going to happen that night by the first Seder? The second Seder? The first Seder, yeah? Yak Nahas. Yak Nahas. What's Yak Nahas? Yayin, Kiddush, Ner, Havdalah. Zman Shechayanu. In the Lashon of Chazal, Zman Shechayanu. So there is a position that holds that a Shechayanu you make only on something which is born Zman Lizman. So a new fruit, if it's seasonal, like to make a Shechayanu on figs, you can make a big shot of a chayk, make a shot on figs, even though we do, because figs don't have a season. But to make a Shechayanu on apricots, or on plums, or on apples, makes sense. Why? Because they grow during one season of the year. They're harvested in August or September, and that's it. You want apples, you gotta wait till next year. Now, of course, in the world in which we live, because of refrigeration and all the rest, you can buy an apple anytime you want. If you have enough money, you can buy a plum anytime you want. But it didn't grow now. It grew 3 months ago or 6 months ago. So you're making a bracha not on the new fruit, you're making a bracha on the new season. And there is a basis to say that we only make Shechayanu on Zman. So Yom Tov obviously is connected to time, so you say a Shechayanu. Fruit that's seasonal. So that when a new season comes, you're not making it on the fruit, you're making it on the new crop, on the ripened, the new paydas. But a beged you can buy any time. So the old Chabad, when I was growing up, we did not make a shechar on new clothes. We just didn't do it. When the Rebbe made the Siyum Sefer Torah of Kabbalah's name Mashiach in 1970, that means 55 years ago, the Rebbe made the Siyum for the Sefer Torah called Mashiach Sefer Torah. Kabbalah's name Mashiach. That Sefer Torah was completed on a Friday. Does anybody know which Sefer Torah I'm talking about? It's the Sefer Torah that has a white cover and the crown is made of gold and silver. The one thing you do not know about the Sefer Torah is that it's extremely heavy. It weighs a ton. It's heavier than 5 Sefer Torahs. It's extremely heavy. It's very, very, very heavy. It's hard to hold. I'm afraid to hold it. I'm certainly afraid to do a hagbeh. When the Rebbe made Siyum Sefer Torah on Friday afternoon, Tes Oile Yud Shvat, the Rebbe made a Shechayanu by the Fabringen. On a fruit. On a payday. The Rebbe made a Rebbe ate. They're supposed to make first the Shechayanu and then the Rebbe ate. The Rebbe made the Shechayanu out loud. We all heard, you can hear the tape. The Rebbe made Shechayanu, but he answered on me. You listening to me? I need a yes.
Yes.
11 years later, we had Birchas Hachama. Do you guys remember Birchas Hachama? You do? You remember Birchas Hachama?
Yeah, my mother made a big deal of it.
How old are you?
I'm 19, but I remember like it was a big
It
deal.
was Tafresh Samaches. Tafresh Samaches. It was 17 years ago. You remember it also? My son, my youngest son, who just had his birthday, was 2 weeks old. He's 17. I mean, you're not 25. You're 19, 20. Anyway, so the Rebbe, so it comes once in 28 years. The next time you're going to do it, you're going to be maybe even grandmothers. I don't know, but you're sure going to be mothers. No, not grandmothers. Yeah, I'll take a minute. Anyway, you'll be mothers. Once in 20, I bought a kuntris, Birchas Hachama for each one of my children, and I held them. I have it in my room, and I'm going to send it to them. I planned it. 28 years later, I'll be an Elter Fed, and there'll be an Eltering Fed. I'll send them each one. I have a copy for each one, including my son, who was mamish 2 weeks old, a month old. Anyway, so Tafshin Mem Aleph, which I was 14, I remember that, we did Birchas Hachama. It's a complicated story, and I'm not going to tell you the whole story. Bottom line is, the Rebbe spent weeks asking the Rabbonim how to do it. The Rav got up in 7:70 in front of the Rebbe and announced exactly how we're going to do it. And then right before Birchas Hachama, the Rebbe gave out his own nusach. And he added things to Nusach Birchas Hachama.
What is it?
Once in 28 years, you make a bracha when the sun returns to its orbit in the sky. Maybe you should put the sun in the sky on a Wednesday morning. The year is 365 and a quarter days long. So every year, when Wednesday morning comes, the sun is 6 hours later than it was when Hashem put it in the sky in the morning. 6 hours later, it takes 28 years, 28 times a quarter is 7, for the sun to be in the same place in the sky that it was when the Eibusher put the sun in the sky the first time. So it's like Kiddush Levana, but Kiddush Levana you do once a month. Berachas Zacham you do once in 28 years. And the brach is Shekeichu V'Rasim Olam. It's a standard brach. But you say a pasuk before, they made a whole nusach out of it, including a Kaddish and an Aleinu, and the Rebbe added L'Shachayanu. The Rebbe added L'Shachayanu. So I was in LA, I'll never forgive the yeshiva. I'll never forgive the yeshiva for not letting us come in. It was so stupid. Once in 28 years, they didn't let us come to Berachas Zacham by the Rebbe. It was really foolish. We were in Los Angeles. It was Daled Nissen. The school ended Ches Nissen. They couldn't let us go. They didn't let us go. We did it in LA. I remember it. And they gave out kumquats, a fruit, which I never tasted before or after in my life. You made a shechiyanu? They're kumquat. They're little citrus fruits. That the fruit is very bitter, but the peel is very sweet, and you eat it with the peel. It's a whole seder. They're very, very small. They gave out kumquats, and they were giving out each one. Kid got one with the shalom bracha and a donut. A kid said, "Boy, made a shechiyanu." The Rebbe made a shechiyanu without a new fruit. So it became a big tumult right away in the ha'aretz. Oh, the Rebbe holds you can make the shechiyanu Berachas Zacham without a pri chadash. And the Rebbe did what he always does. He let people emote, went on for a few weeks. And after Pesach, I was already back in Los Angeles after coming over Pesach. The Rebbe said, "Excuse me, people, I put on a new sirtuk. I put on a new kapata." Now that was a chiddush. Why? Because 11 years before, when the Rebbe had to make a shechayanu, he did it on a pedi, which makes sense because the pedi is man, it's seasonal. 11 years later, the Rebbe made a shechayanu on a beged, and since then, the Rebbe has said that we don't make a shechayanu on a new garment. But if you have two reasons together, you can make a shechayanu on a garment. For example, a birthday. The Rebbe wants us to make a shechayanu on a birthday, so of course everybody goes and gets a new fruit, which makes sense. But it's especially chassidish, it's more expensive, to make the shechayanu not on a pedi, but on a beged. Why? Because you can't make the shechayanu on the beged. You can't make the shechayanu on your birthday, but you can make the shechiyanu when they come together. My birthday is for Rosh Hashanah. So very often I buy a new kapata and I make shechiyanu on my birthday. I'm buying anyways a new kapata. But this is doing something that the Rebbe introduced, and I feel, and I don't know for sure, and I'm not a Rav, that it's like a chiddush, that we don't make a shechiyanu on a beged, but when you have a birthday, why should you make a shechiyanu on your birthday? What happened? You were born. Thank you very much. Make a shechayanu on the mitzvahs you do, not on the fact that you were born. But the Rebbe made 10 minhagim for Yom Haledes. You should chazak chassidus, more maligno, 10 things that you should do. And one of them is that you make a shechayanu. But you can't make the shech on your birthday, you can't do it. You'll be a bracha l'batola. So you make it on a new fruit, that's the tradition. But if you make it on a beged, you're doing something very special because you can't make it on the beged by itself, you can't make it on the birthday by itself, you can make it on the combination. This is one of the minhagim that the Rebbe introduced. Now, but the minhagim came out Matzah Pesach. Achei Pesach. What the Rebbe spoke on the Rebbetzins Yom Haledes was more about the day of Yom Haledes. The truth of the matter is, I don't remember what the Rebbe said. I just remember the feel. I just remember the mood of the sikha. It was very, very positive. The Rebbe was talking about the Rebbetzin. I think it was in that sikha that he mentioned that the Rebbetzin had said to the judge, "This farm belonged to the Chassidim because my father belonged to." I think he mentioned it in that sikha. But the Rebbe spoke about the Rebbetzin. And the Rebbe said that in conjunction with her Yom Haledes, we're making the mitzvah of Yom Haledes. Now here's the background. Here is the background, okay? Frum Yidden always connected Yom Haledes to who? To Parei Melech Mitzrayim. Yom Haledes es Parei. The only birthday which is mentioned in the Chumash is Parei. And by the way, if you know Rashi, right? There's Yom Leida and there's Yom Haledes. The day you're born and the day you're born. Yom Haledes means the day that somebody else birthed you. You remember Rashi? That when a person is born, they can't exactly take care of themselves because they're a newborn. So there's a lashon kal and a lashon kaved for birthdays. One is you're born, and one day somebody else births you. Yom Huledus means you were born because you had a midwife, because you had a doctor who helped you, otherwise you would have been in trouble. The word Huledus shows on a dependency. I need somebody else in order to be born, because I can't born myself. Born, whatever I say it as a verb. I can't birth myself because I'm a baby, I'm an infant. And that's the diak of Yom Huledus. So the Rebbe said Jews always thought birthdays as an undesirable thing. In fact, most people don't know their birthdays. You go back a couple of hundred years, people didn't know how old they were. Mamish. People did not know how old they were. What do you have to know for? You have to know for the taxes, you have to know for the military, but people got into this. But the Baal Shem Tov celebrated his birthday. We know for a fact. Baal Shem Tov's birthday is Chayel. And every year in Chayel, Baal Shem Tov had a very big day of his Eidus. The Talmidim came special for Chayel. Because Rosh Hashanah started Chayel. By the Baal Shem Tov Chayel, which was his Yom Huledus, which, as you know from the Yom Yom, is against Chedesh Tishrei. There was an earnestness by the Baal Shem Tov. It was Eimah V'Fachat. The day of Chayel was commemorated. Baal Shem Tov made a Suda and he washed and he said Teira. Pardon me. Pardon me. And you felt the Tishrei, the earnestness of the Yomim Neroyim, of the Asteres Yemei Tshuv, the start of Chayel. And of course, the Chiddush is that in the year that the Alter Rebbe was born, his birthday is also Chayel. The Baal Shem Tov put on big day Shabbos clothes, which he normally did not do. And he went to the Omed himself, and he davened with the Nusach of Simchas Torah. And he didn't say Tachnun. He made it into like his big yontif. And by the meal that day, he said, today a neshama chadash came down into this world, and his name is Shnei Yoir, and he's going to illuminate the world with the two lights, the light of Nigel the Torah and the light of Pnimius HaTorah. And the Baal Shem Tov celebrated the Baal Shem Tov Alter Rebbe's birth. 3 years later, Alter Rebbe turned 3 years old. Again, the Baal Shem Tov said a Maimeh Chassidus on the Maimeh Chazal. Ben Sholoi Shonim Hiker Avram as Boirei, that when Avram Avinu was 3 years old, he recognized the Eibishter, and he said 3 years ago, I spoke to you about the Neshama Chadasha. That Neshama Chadasha turned 3 today. He had been by the Alter Rebbe. The Baal Shem Tov gave him his first haircut, but it was done in such a way that nobody should notice. So I'm giving him a bracha weiter. So by Chassidim, at least by the Rabbeim, there's always a thing. But it was quiet. Chassidim didn't know. Chassidim did not know that the Rebbeim celebrated their birthdays. Fakert. A Chassid would hear about a birthday, say, Feh! A birthday is for a for a president, for Martin Luther King, you understand? But Chassidish Yidden don't have birthdays. When I was growing up, there was Washington's birthday, and there was Jefferson's birthday, and there was Lincoln's birthday. I think it was all in February. And each one of those was a legal holiday, schools were closed. Then they made it into President's Day. So they should not lose 3 days of work. Yeah. And then it became Martin Luther King Day. That's what we have now. Martin Luther King, all February. The day he was born, Martin Luther King Day. It used to be President's Day. Before that, we had Lincoln's birthday, and Washington's birthday, and I think Jefferson's birthday. It's been a while. But Goyim celebrate birthdays. But the Rabbeim did it privately. Shiller hate. All the Rabbeim. The Frierdiker Rebbe says in his Sichos that my father always said Chassidus on his Yom Huledus. Always said a Maimeh Chassidus on his birthday. If it was Shabbos, he said it in public, so nobody knew. If it wasn't Shabbos, he would call me into his room privately. And the Rebbe was bar mitzvah age. And the Rebbe was still in the Cheder, he had a teacher. And when he left the Cheder, he had a private tutor. The private tutor of the Frierdiker Rebbe was a very, very great chassid by the name of the Rashbatz. Rabbi Shmuel Betzalel Sheftel. Rabbi Shmuel Betzalel Sheftel was his name. He was a private tutor of the Rebbe Rashab, when the Rebbe Rashab was a boy. And then later, the Rebbe Rashab commissioned him to be the private tutor of the Frierdiker Rebbe. Imagine what kind of chassid he must have been if he was the private tutor of 2 of the Rabbeim Nisim. It was an incredibly great chassid. And when the Rebbe Rashab, and they had a whole schedule. If the Rebbe Rashab wanted to break the schedule, he would ask the Rashbat's permission. It was very formal, very respectful. So the Frierdiker Rebbe told the Rebbe Rashab, the Frierdiker Rebbe today, when you go to the Cheder, ask the Rashbat's, if 4 o'clock you could leave, I want to see you. Now the Rashbat's knew before. The Rebbe Rashab told him, but the Rebbe wanted the Frierdiker Rebbe should ask permission. 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the Rashbat let him leave the Cheder. There was a private chavrusa. There was 2 of them exactly. and he went to his home, to his father's room. The Rebbe Rashab had two rooms. There was a Yechidus room and another room with only one door, meaning if you went into the second room, the first room, the room leading to the Ched Yechidus, had no other door. It was just a room into a room, so it was very private. They went into the first room and they locked the door. They went into the second room and they locked the door. And they prepared before, the Rebbe Rashab prepared his Shabbos clothes, and the Frierdiker prepared his Shabbos clothes, and they both put on their Shabbos Dika Kleidin, and the Rebbe Rashab said a Maimon Chassidus to the Frierdiker Rebbe privately. This was every year like this. If Chof Mar Cheshem, which is the Yom Ledes of the Rebbe Nishmas Yedin of the Rebbe Rashab, was not on Shabbos, so he would call the Frierdiker Rebbe, he said Chassidus privately, nobody knew. What am I going to say next? What am I going to say next? That in Tov Reish Pei, the year of the Estalkos of the Rebbe Rashab, the Rebbe Rashab called the Frierdiker Rebbe, who was then 39 years old. He was not a child anymore. And he came into the Rebbe Rashab's room, and the Rebbe Rashab said Chassidus to him privately. And after he said Chassidus, he said, I'm giving you a bracha that you should say Chassidus on your birthday. Now with Das Tachten, the Frierdiker didn't have any sons. So who is he going to say Chassidus to? To the Chassidim. But you can't say Chassidus to the Chassidim because it's a private thing. So what does it say in Yem? What goes weiter? Anybody knows? When the Frierdiker ever heard his father say those words, he knew exactly what his father was saying, and he said the condition is to be with chesed and racham, kindness and compassion. And b'chesed b'racham means, it's a little bit surprising because it's not the simple touch of the words. The Frierdiker Rebbe says, but his father basically told him he's going to be a Rebbe, and he was going to say Chassidus on his birthday. So he immediately said, on the condition that I'm not going to see bad in my Chassidim. The meaning of the words b'chesed b'racham is that he will not see anything negative in his Chassidim. When our Rebbe became a Rebbe, Yud Shvat Tovshin Yudalach, the Fabrengen is on tape, and it's Muget printed in the Kutasichas Chalubez in his office. At the end of the Fabrengen, the Rebbe said, the Rebbe Nishmas Yedin had gesagt dem Rebbe, the Rebbe the Shver, when the Rebbe Rashab told the Frierdiker Rebbe that he's going to say Chassidus on his birthday, he told his father that the condition of the Nesius is, so it's like b'chesed b'rachamim. And again, the meaning of b'chesed b'rachamim doesn't mean the Eibush is going to give him chesed. The Eibush is going to give him rachamim, but that he's going to give his chassidim chesed b'rachamim. He's not going to see anything negative in his chassidim. And the Rebbe said, we're making the same t'nai. That the Rebbe's Nesius is b'tnai, b'chesed b'rachamim, he's only going to see good chassidim. I heard once that Betel Eunuch was in the Rebbe's room in the first couple of years, and the Rebbe was reading mail. And the Rebbe mutters to himself, "Oi!" He says, "Anes as ich hab machel gewend, nor than gut of Yidden." The Rebbe said to himself, "But Betel Eunuch, it's a miracle I made a condition that I only see good things about. It's a nest that I made a decision that I'm not going to see bad, only good in people." So the Rebbe Rashab told the Frierdiker Rebbe, "I'm giving you a bracha. You should say Chassidus on your Yom Haledes." And the Frierdiker Rebbe said immediately, what goes next? Nobody knows this. Nobody was in seminary. I'll ask you, maybe. So it took 7 years. The Frierdiker Rebbe writes this, that 7 years after he became a Rebbe, he was released from prison on his birthday, Yud Beis Tammuz. And from that point forward, every single year, Yud Beis Tammuz, the Frierdiker Rebbe said Chassidus. You with me? Huh?
Why didn't he say before that? Like from when he became Rebbe?
Maybe he did, but he didn't have any sons. For them, because at that time, the Inyan Yom Haledes was still secret. Who revealed Yom Haledes to us? The Frierdiker Rebbe. No, the Frierdiker Rebbe. But when? After Yud Beis Tammuz. Not in Russia, after he left Russia. By the time the Frierdiker Rebbe got to America, everybody knew that Yom Haledes is an Inyan. And everybody knew that there was Minhagei Yom Haledes. In other words, the Rebbe made the official mitzvah Yom Haledes in conjunction with the passing of the Rebbetzin, Chaf Hei Oder, Tovshin Memchas. But we grew up knowing Minhagei Yom Haledes. My father told me, every year he went into the Rebbe Yechidus, and the Rebbe would say to be careful with the Minhagei Yom Haledes, which means that the Shabbos before you should get an aliyah, and if you're and the day of your birthday you should give extra stock. You know this before Shachas and before Mincha. And if your birthday is on a Shabbat, you should give a double stock on Friday before Shachas and before Mincha. for your birthday. You should learn extra nigla, you should learn extra chassidus, you should make a fabrengen, you should chazar chassidus, you should be mekarav yidin to Yiddishkeit. There are 10 minhagim. The 10 minhagim were made then, in Memches. But most of those minhagim we knew before. Because hundreds and hundreds of people, maybe thousands and thousands of people, went into the Rebbe to Yechidus, and the Rebbe told them to keep minhagim Yom HaLedus. So Yom HaLedus was a mitzvah before it was mitzvah. Because the Friede could never revealed. And one of the mitzvahim is, by the way, one of the 10 in Yom HaLedus, you're supposed to say your kapitel til with Shneis Chayav. L'mashal, I am 59 years old, so I say kapitel Samach. You are 19 years old, so you say kapitel Chof, or you're 18 years old, kapitel Yites. Because the day you turn 18, you're in your 19th year, right? The day you turn 59, you're in your 60th year. And there's another meaning which people don't do. That the meaning is that on Reish Chodesh, each month of the year, you're supposed to learn a few psukim of your kapitel in such a way that over the course of the 12 Rosh Chodesh, you finish your whole kapitel. So if you have a short kapitel, so you learn one pasuk a month. But if you said kapitel Yudches, if you can still remember the trauma of saying kapitel Yudches, which is 51 psukim, 53 psukim, so you have to learn each Chodesh. Each Chodesh 3 or 4 psukim, 5 psukim. Nobody does this. I shouldn't say nobody. I don't do it. It's one of the 10 minhagim Yom HaLedus.
Seminary, law student seminary.
You did it? You're supposed to do it every year. Not on your birthday. On Rosh Chodesh, you're supposed to learn a few psukim of your kapitel with mefarshim. As they said in Sefer Minhagim. It's minhagim Yom HaLedus. It's Sefer HaMinhagim even. So Mifta Yom HaLedus sort of happened slowly. It happened slowly. But the Rebbe he connected to the Rebbe. The bottom line is the Rebbe connected Mifta Yom HaLedus to the Rebbe. Now when the Rebbe made Mifta Yom HaLedus, it was a mitzvah. It was a thing in the Lubavitch, you know. It was a thing in the Lubavitch. Ubehegdim. I want to give you another example of such a thing, which unfortunately does not get enough press. But it's good to know. I don't think this is negeh to you, but it's negeh on shlichus. It's very stark negeh. When I was growing up, there were a lot of Lubavitcher men, and even more so women, who used their English names, their Goyish names. B'klal, my parents' generation, my mother's American born, my father's Russian, my mother's American born. My mother's name was Rochelle. That was her name. I don't know what her parents called her at home, but it was very common, even for frum people in America, to use their Goyish name. Even in yeshiva, even amongst their friends, even in their family. And in the late 70s, early 80s, the Rebbe made a campaign that people should use their Hebrew names. And I know people who were known by a Goyish name for their whole life, and they refused, they took it very seriously. I know a guy who made a t-shirt. My name is so-and-so. If you called him by his other name, he would push it and ignore you. He had to train himself and everybody around him. From now on, my name is Kach L'Kach. It's not the name by which you used me until then. Because the Rebbe made a campaign that people should use their Hebrew names. B'klal, whenever I meet people and I ask them their name, I met a guy Friday night who had a Fabrengen. What's your name? My name is Harrison. So my instinct was say, Benjamin Harrison. So you're such and such a president that lasted for so many and so many hours before you died, yeah? But I said to him, what's your Hebrew name? Avram. It's a very good habit to get into, to ask people what's the Hebrew name. Because it's very good to use your Hebrew name. It says in Tanya that the Hebrew name is the Neshama. You call somebody's Hebrew name, you made it the Neshama. And you'll find that a lot of Jews do not have Hebrew names. It's a thing in Lubavitch, even for a girl who doesn't need a bris, or a boy who has a bris. Number one, they should have a Hebrew name, and number two, that they should use their Hebrew name. When the Rebbe used to write letters to people, he would always, even if they were not from at all, the Rebbe in his letters would address people with the Hebrew name. It was very uncommon for people to be addressed by the Rebbe by their English name. It was very unusual. The Rebbe himself would ask you what your Hebrew name was, and in all of his messages to you and all of your letters, he would write your Hebrew name. This is one campaign. When Mifta Yom HaLedus was born, it created a new campaign among shluchim. Some shluchim are into it, some shluchim are not into it. But it's a really wonderful kiruv tool. Hebrew birthdays. I know a shliach in Toronto who has on his mailing list tens of thousands of Jews. He knows each one. If there's tens of thousands of mailing lists, every single day he's sending out 50 mailings for the birthday person. You get a birthday gift and a birthday certificate and a letter from the rabbi telling you that your birthday is kach v'kach and that you should celebrate the birthday. You're not asking for anything. You're reminding them that they have a Hebrew birthday. You're reminding them that they have a Hebrew name. And you're reminding them that they have a rabbi. Which are all good things. So some shluchim started it then and then they forgot about it, like a lot of things. Some shluchim forgot it then, started then, they haven't forgotten it. It's an easy tool because you're not making people uncomfortable. You're remembering their personal birthday. They feel very good about it. And it's a modern means by which you can bring people into mitzvahs. Your birthday is coming on this and this date. Your Hebrew name is such and such. Your Hebrew birthday is such and such. Maybe you should put on film the Chol HaPachas that day, or you should keep that Shabbos, which is a big one. This is the story of Mitzvah Yom Holedus. The Rebbe started in conjunction with the Rebbetzin, and it became a whole thing that people use the Hebrew birthdays. In many from circles, I mean, even in Lubavitch, you ask a girl, what's your birthday? They tell you the Goyish your birthday. And every time I hear it, I cringe. It's not as bad as saying your Goyish name, but it's almost as bad. What's my birthday? Chafayelo. When I was growing up, I didn't even know I had to find out my English birthday because I had to go fill out legal papers, you understand? What's my birthday? Chafayelo. When you meet little kids who grow up on shlichus, you ask their birthday. My birthday is in Aleph Shvat. Oh, that's a Yiddish kid. But my birthday is November 11th. Really? Ich weiß was February 14th. That's my Yom Holedus. So one of the sa'adim, one of the secondary effects of Mitzvah Yom Holedus was that people should use, I'm adding their Hebrew names and their Hebrew birthdays. Someone had a hand raised? Go ahead.
What do you think of people who give attention to both their kids' Hebrew and their English?
What do you think about the possibility of me not answering every question? I don't do it. I don't think that Rebbe did it. I have a funny feeling that Rebbe didn't do it. I don't know. I don't know why, but I think even the Rebbetzin didn't celebrate his birthday. I don't know why I would think that, but somehow I feel like it wasn't such a big deal to them. You know the story, yeah? The Rebbe once went to the doctor with the Rebbetzin, and they asked the Rebbe, how old is she and what's her birthday? So the Rebbe said, ask her, he doesn't know. You know why? Because the legal age and birthday of the Rebbe, the Rebbetzin was completely off. On the Rebbe's legal papers, he was born in 1895. He was older. 1895. He was born in 1902. He was younger than the Rebbetzin, but in his legal papers, he was 6 years older than her. Jay Fashtay, when you live in Russia, there's different rules. So the Rebbe, I don't know her legal age. I don't know if I used to ask her. But the Rebbe celebrated her birthday. The Rebbe used to go to the oil, Achei Temimim, you know that. And if there were two others, he went both others. The Rebbe went to the oil for the Rebbe's birthday every year. Go ahead.
Before we were mentioning about calling them by their Hebrew names, like Shleimus and Shama, what about nicknames then?
So a nickname in halacha has a certain validity. Now, I'm not trying to open up a can of garbanzo beans over here, you understand? But the Rebbe Rayatz, for example, says that his father always called him by his full name, Yosef Yitzchak. I don't know what the Hebrew name called it Rebbe, but you call people by the Hebrew name. It's not the end of the world, but you call people by the Hebrew name. Go ahead.
What makes it a Jewish name? It's not
Okay, this is a halacha question. And there are, it's very, very complicated. So there's pashut books and books and books and books with my name, you know that? It's a very serious business. So that's what makes it Hebrew name. And names evolve. Names that used to be Latin are now Jewish. Names that used to be German are now Jewish. And sometime down the road, names that are English, one day Robert is going to be a Jewish name. But the Raila, I don't think it is.
That's certain words that weren't Jewish names.
Okay? Fine. I'm not going into this, but like I said, the answer to your question, these are serious halachic questions, and there are many, many, many svarim dedicated to this question. So you got to reference those books. It's an unfortunate truth. The reason there's such a big deal made out of Hebrew names is because of divorce.
The what?
Because of divorce. In a get, if you don't write the names correctly, the get is possible. So there's books and books and books and books written about how to define what you have to write, what you don't have to write, what is the Hebrew name. So there's a lot of svarim on this. So it's an unpleasant place to look, or it's a place which is connected to unpleasantness, but it's very precise. It's not a game. You can't make up a Hebrew name. You know, in Israel today, everybody got a Hebrew name. What's my Hebrew name? Clara. Not Clara, Clara. There's a difference, right? Clara. Where did it come from? The movie actress, you understand? Clara. That's not a Hebrew name. It's not a name of Pitera. So there's halachas, and the Rabbanim deal with these shalos all the time. So I just want to sort of finish with this here thought. Chavre went into the Rebbe and the Yom Haledes every year. Every Bachar. When he was 13 years old, he went into Yechidus with his parents for mitzvah. And depending on what kind of family you had, and what kind of relation you had with the Rebbe, usually you went in not just with your parents, but all your brothers and sisters, the whole family went in together for the Yom Haledes, for the bar mitzvah, whatever it was. And the Rebbe gave you brachas. The Rebbe used to test you on the Maimon. He would test you on the pilpul. He would tell you to learn Hilchos Tefillin. There was different things that used to happen. When you were 14, you went into the Rebbe alone. And every Bachar in Seven Yeshiva, from the age of 14, for the rest of his life, it wasn't on the birthday mamish, in the time leading up to the birthday, would have a Yechidus by the Rebbe.
Which years were this?
It stopped in 1973, 74. Tov Lamed Daled, the Rebbe stopped it. Tov Lamed Hey, the Rebbe stopped it. Lamed Daled, Lamed Hey. Lamed Daled, Lamed Hey. The Rebbe said he stopped it because people were not taking it seriously. People went into Yechidus, and the Rebbe gave them instructions, and they didn't keep it. The Rebbe stopped it. I think it was Tishrei Lamed Hey. I remember sitting on my father's lap. I remember, and I saw my father was really upset. My father was really upset. There was some hesitation, I think. I said, Tom, why are you so upset? So he didn't want to talk to me in the middle of a sikha, but he said the Rebbe is stopping Yechidus. So why are you so upset? I didn't think it was a big deal. Father, you don't understand. The Rebbe is stopping Yechidus. Can't go into the Rebbe for a Yanim Pnimiyim. And the way it was, and I hear conflicting versions. When you walked into the Rebbe's room, the Rebbe got up for you. A 14-year-old boy chick walked in, the Rebbe got up. Everybody walked in. Now, I've asked dozens of people if they remember the Rebbe getting up for them. Some people told me for sure, and some people said, nah, you crazy. But my father told me this. The Rebbe used to get up when you walked in. And when you were leaving, you get up again. Each person that walked in, each person that walked out, the Rebbe gave him a shteluf. He didn't stand up. He raised himself out of his seat. And Chassidim used to say that this is the word from the Rebbe Marash, that when the chassid comes into Yechidus, the Rebbe goes into him. And when the chassid leaves the Yechidus, the Rebbe has to go out of that chassid to go into the next chassid. And they explained that the Rebbe is getting up when you walked in as going into you, and the Rebbe is getting up when you would leave as leaving you going into the next Bachar. And Bachar became into the Rebbe Yechidus, and they would give the Rebbe a note. And the Rebbe would tell them in fear of Manoga Yom Haledes, and then they would ask them, do you learn Chitas? Chumash till Tanya. If you told the Rebbe no, the Rebbe would say, okay, from now on, every day you learn a Pasha Chumash, you'll say Till Miachedesh, and you'll learn Tanya. You came in a year later, you wrote a new note, and the Rebbe said, you learn Chitas? I am embarrassed to tell you, but many Bachim said, not so good. Okay, from now on, you'll learn Chitas. It didn't matter what you wrote. If you didn't learn Chitas, that was the end of the conversation. If you came in the next year and the Rebbe asked you, knew how was Chitas? Every day. Oh, Chitas, good, every day. Okay, now you should do kach v'kach. The Rebbe used to give Heiros to Bachrim, personal Heiros. But the first Heiros was Chitas. And until Chitas was down pat, he didn't move. And the Rebbe was so frustrated that year after year after year. And what was nuts about it is, how many people did the Rebbe see in a year? Tens of thousands. You walked through the door and he reminded you of last year's Yechidus like it just happened. He remembered your Yechidus better than you did. I saw a video of Shlomo Schwartz, he went to the Yechidus one year, asked the Rebbe a question. And a year later, he asked the Rebbe a different question. And the Rebbe said to him, it's evidence from your question that you didn't understand what I told you a year ago. And the Rebbe explained to him what he said a year ago, and on that basis, the question that he asked this year was a non-question. Anyway, so our Fabrenga with the Rebbe was about Yom Haledes.